it's not like earlier when the film stock was so expensive that you couldn't afford to go wrong. You had to come with a proper plan. So now what is happening is that because of the digital domain, people know that there's not going to be any issue of getting your shots for the film. So people try to take shots from all sorts of angle and be safe, saying that okay, we've given enough for the editor to play around with. But that's not actually how it should also be, because there is something that a thought that comes along with the shots from the director.
So, Suresh, coming to the editing, what is the material that an editor expects to land on his table, his or her table? Uh, in what form and what kind of a material do you get?
What form in the sense, like, first of all, before I get into this, it's very important, I think, for every editor to, go through the screenplay thoroughly, at least once, and try and understand what the genre of the film is and what the treatment is going to be, have a discussion with the director ideally before the shoot starts, so you're on the same page, because sometimes not sometimes, most of the times what is happening is that the editors come in during the last stage, a lot of times the editor is called upon saying that acha humne shoot khatam kar diya hai, so aapka kaam shuru karna hai. So it would always be better, for the film also, if the editor is on board right from the beginning, in terms of the fact that it there is a process, there is a screenplay. First there is an idea, there's a story, then it's expanded by with a screenplay. So there is a in fact, actually, even if you're saying that it is evolving, there is a dilution of idea that happens from each stage, so from the story it's going to the screenplay. So from the screenplay, the director is going to take over, and then the director gives us a certain treatment, and then when finally ends up on the editor's table, the editor actually has to go with whatever has been given to him by the by the aesthetic tendencies of the director. So yeah, if you ask me what kind of material that I receive all sorts of materials. These days, especially ever since the digital era, what has happened is that I wouldn't actually be saying this in a bad way, but there is a certain lack of discipline, because it's not like earlier when the film stock was so expensive that you couldn't afford to go wrong. You had to come with a proper plan. So now what is happening is that because of the digital domain, people know that there's not going to be any issue of getting your shots for the film. So people try to take shots from all sorts of angle and be safe, saying that okay, we've given enough for the editor to play around with. But that's not actually how it should also be, because there is something that a thought that comes along with the shots from the director. The directorial touch is slightly lost there when you start giving the editor all sorts of shots in trying to be playing safe. So I
So
don't know if
once
I've
you
answered your question right, but yeah.
no, that's okay. Once you have received the material and you know what the script is, what do you do? What's the first stage? Viewing the preview stage. What are the thoughts in the mind of an editor? You know,
Okay.
there is a brief, there is the screenplay, and there is a material.
Okay.
So how do you link and you can try to confine to the screenplay or the brief, or you have maybe different or maybe better ideas? You try to experiment.
Okay. So we won't get into the technical aspect as to, you when
Mhm.
you ask me what happens first, I won't get into the technical aspects as to what all needs to be done, for the editor to start. I'll go into the creative part of it.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, you read the script, you met the director, and ideally, what I do is I sit with the director while watching the rushes so that we are on the same page as to, what we expect from each shot, what kind of performances are expected from the shot. So we there is a selection process that happens, and then I'm let alone. Once I know that okay, we are on the same page regarding the kind of performances that we need, the editor usually sits with, there is a communication that happens. I mean, it's a lot of
Mhm.
time it's instinctive, and you what happens is that for each scene the editor tries to be the character that he's editing.
Mhm.
So that also gives you an idea as to what the character is actually feeling. So you sort of, how would I say, I mean, you empathize, if you be
Mhm.
with the character, and that also helps you in deciding what kind of cuts the scene requires, and the overall mood of the scene.
Mhm.
When you
Okay.
see the rushes, you get an idea what kind of scene is expected out of these shots, and
Mhm.
you go along with that.
Because you spoke about the dilution that takes place from the screenplay stage to the shooting to the editing. By
Yeah,
the time it reaches you,
yeah,
that's quite understandable because the screenplay may say, okay, they separate. But then there are
mhm,
thousands of visual ways or in
exactly.
terms of sound to separate two
Yeah,
people. And
yeah.
what is their relationship, the past and the context, everything comes into the play. uh,
Hmm.
how do you create the desired meaning with that kind of a visual? You know, do you deploy something which is not there in the script sometimes, or you strictly stick to what has been shot and don't add or delete anything from there?
See, I as an editor, my thing has always been that try as much not to interfere with that process. If the
Mhm.
scene has been shot and justice has been done by all the people involved, the cameraman, the director, the performers, what then I do is I just facilitate. Because as a scene, if it works even otherwise, why should I try to do anything extra to make it, one doesn't know. I mean, while editing you always experiment, if you try something separately also, but then if a film, a scene works by itself, the editor does what is required of him, that's all.
Mhm.
Yes, there are times when there are scenes which are supposed to be created on the table, and it's shot also like that. So then
Mhm.
that you have to create that thing. For example, there's a scene, not my film. This is a very favorite film of mine. For some reason, I keep showing it to all my students whenever I go for workshops. It is Mirch Masala.
Mhm.
Ketan Mehta's Mirch Masala. I don't know
The
why
climax.
Sanjeev Shah hasn't done too many films later. He's directed a film afterwards, but the last 10-15 minutes of the film, you see it and it's table created.
Yeah.
So in such situations, when I also get material like that, where it is to do something more to be created on the table, I do it.